The NBA is a league ruled by superstars. A single superstar often guarantees you a playoff spot, and two will make you a title contender. However, that's not an exact science. Here are the worst cases of superstar implosion and the greatest NBA duos that failed miserably. Allen Iverson is a god in Philadelphia. So in 2006, when the 76ers traded him to Denver, Philly's fan base was disgusted. Unsurprisingly, the Nuggets fans were ecstatic because they had Carmelo Anthony, who averaged 28 points per game. But Iverson was even better. In his last 2 seasons in Philly, AI averaged over 30 points. So with 2 of the 5 best scorers in the NBA, the Nuggets were hoping to win their first NBA championship. But that was just wishful thinking. Even though Melo and AI combined for more than 50 points per game, they didn't play any defense, and they spent their free time in nightclubs instead of the practice facility. So when the 2007 playoffs came around, Denver lost 4-1 in the first round to the Spurs. And in 2008, they were even worse, getting swept by Kobe and the Lakers. After winning just 1 playoff game in 2 years, it was clear that Iverson and Melo were good on paper, but a disaster in reality. So 3 games into the 2009 season, Iverson was traded to Detroit, and the AI-Carmelo partnership ended up as nothing but empty scoring numbers. You'd think that Carmelo would learn from that failure and choose his superstar teammates better, but you'd be wrong. In 2010, Melo forced his way out of Denver and into New York because he fell in love with another superstar. In a basketball sense, not romantically, just to be clear. It was Stoudemire, who was like a Lamborghini with bad brakes. When he was at his best, Amari was the most explosive big man in the NBA. The problem was that his knees were terrible, and it was only a matter of time before he was going to crash, just like a fast car with bad brakes. In 2010, when Stoudemire signed with the Knicks, he came in at 200 miles per hour, averaging over 30 points in his first 10 games in New York. He was so good that Anthony created melodrama, fighting with everybody on the Nuggets just so he could play with Stoudemire on the Knicks. But in their first full season together, Amari's knees lasted only until the All-Star break. In the following season, Stoudemire played just 29 games, and it was clear that his best basketball days were behind him. Carmelo was supposed to drive at 200 miles per hour with Stoudemire, but he got a wreck that was in the shop more than it was on the road. Stoudemire and Anthony never won a playoff series playing together, and they flamed out just as abruptly as they got together. But at least they didn't end up hating each other, which could not be said about KD and Russell Westbrook, because when they split up, it felt like the biggest betrayal in the NBA. In 2007, Durant was drafted by the Seattle Supersonics. Next year, the team moved to Oklahoma City, and in their first draft as the OKC Thunder, they selected Russell Westbrook. In 2009, James Harden joined them, and in 2012, the Thunder played in their first NBA Finals. The future seemed so bright, and OKC was looking like it would win at least 2 or 3 titles and become a dynasty. But they managed to ruin everything. First, OKC didn't want to pay James Harden enough money, so he demanded a trade. Still, with KD and Russ, the Thunder still had enough to go all the way, and they were never as close as in 2016. OKC had a 3-1 lead in the conference finals against the Warriors, and were just 1 game away from proceeding to the finals. But thanks to Klay Thompson's magical Game 6, the Warriors forced a Game 7 and would ultimately prevail and win the series. Kevin Durant was a free agent, and he had had enough. OKC's offense was stagnant. Russ was forcing a lot of shots, and KD was always guarded by 2 people. So Durant's next chapter was with Golden State, the team who just defeated them in the playoffs. While Russ stayed in Oklahoma, hating KD's guts, Westbrook didn't even acknowledge KD during the All-Star game, and they had a big argument on the court when Durant visited OKC in a Warriors jersey. KD may have been called a cupcake, but he won 2 titles, and in retrospect, we can safely say he made the right decision. His absence allowed Russ to average a triple-double and win the MVP, so at least both sides did well after a messy divorce. Something Kobe Bryant was very familiar with. Kobe was the biggest asshole when it came to basketball, and he was known to be extremely hard on his teammates. Dwight Howard was the complete opposite, and was known for having a good time and laughing on the court. Even though Howard came to LA in 2012 with the resume of the best center in the NBA, His personality was never going to click with Kobe's. However, that could all be forgotten if the Lakers were winning, but it just wasn't the case. Dwight was still recovering from back surgery that limited his athleticism and mobility, and the Lakers were struggling to make the playoffs. But to make the postseason, Kobe went on a tear in the final months of the regular season, playing more than 40 minutes per game, carrying the Lakers to each precious victory. The Lakers eventually did secure a playoff berth, but they paid a hefty price. Kobe tore his Achilles due to the insane workload at the age of 34, and the Lakers' season went down the drain. Howard was now a free agent, and he could have chosen to stay with the grumpy and injured Kobe or go to a new destination. So ultimately, he chose to join James Harden and the Rockets. And when Bryant first played against Dwight, he let him know exactly what he thinks of him. "You're soft. You are soft," Kobe kept repeating, even challenging a much bigger Howard to a fight. Dwight still managed to make the All-Star team in Houston, but his relationship with James Harden soon became identical to his beef with Kobe. Then during Howard's third year with the Rockets, Harden couldn't stand his big man anymore. They didn't talk. Harden rarely passed him the ball, and the Rockets weren't a good team. After an embarrassing loss in the playoffs, Howard was forced to switch teams again, and he would soon earn the reputation of one of the most annoying players in the NBA. Bryant even said that after playing with Dwight, that he started to appreciate Shaq more, despite their beef that lasted for years. But if there is somebody who didn't appreciate Shaq as a teammate, it had to be LeBron James, because towards the end of his career, Shaquille O'Neal was a certified ring chaser, and in 2009, Shaq was an all-star with Phoenix. But after he failed to win the title with Steve Nash, O'Neal believed that his best bet to win another championship was to join LeBron James in Cleveland. The only problem was that Shaq liked donuts more than he wanted to win that elusive fifth title. Fat and out of shape, Shaq never provided much help for LeBron, averaging just 12 points and 6 rebounds in 23 minutes per game. The Cavs lost in the second round of the playoffs to the Celtics, after which LeBron ditched Shaq and made his decision to take his talents to South Beach. So in 2011, Shaq went on another ring-chasing expedition in Boston, where he would ultimately end his career. But the Celtics weren't lacking in superstar duos failing miserably. In fact, Kevin Garnett didn't just fall out with a fellow superstar, he lost his best friend. In 1995, Kevin Garnett came to the NBA straight out of high school, and a year later, Stephon Marbury wanted to do the same. He called KG, asked him about his NBA experience, and they soon became great friends. After which Garnett persuaded Marbury to put his name in the loaded 1996 NBA draft. You can imagine Garnett's happiness when the Timberwolves traded their 5th pick, which was Ray Allen, for Marbury, who was originally selected by the Bucks. Even though Ray Allen was one of the greatest shooters ever, trading for Marbury looked like a steal for the Timberwolves. Starbury had put up great numbers and was one of the best passers in the game, and was looking like a perfect Robin to Garnett's Batman. But when Garnett got a gigantic $126 million extension, and the Timberwolves offered Marbury only $71 million, problems began to arise. And beyond the money, the weather was an even bigger issue. Marbury was freezing his ass off in Minneapolis, so he didn't want to sign a long extension. And in the middle of his 3rd season, during a particularly cold winter, Steph asked for a trade and got sent to New Jersey. KG felt he was betrayed and was never on great terms with Marbury ever again. But no betrayal could have been as bad as what Vince Carter did to Toronto. Carter wanted to get traded, so he refused to play hard in games. He was dragging himself on the court, not playing a lick of defense, and generally not giving a crap about his team or the fans in Toronto. Vince averaged 16 points compared to his usual 25, went to the free throw line just 3 times instead of 8, and even shot the free throws below 70%, even though he was usually making them close to 80%. And then, he finally got traded, landing in New Jersey with Jason Kidd, one of the best point guards in the NBA. As soon as he got traded, Vince's sanity was back. He was playing hard, drawing fouls, and averaging 27 points per game. The Kidd and Carter connection worked perfectly, and everybody thought the Nets were going to the finals again. But it proved to be the furthest thing from the truth. Both Vince and Kidd's jump shots would go MIA, and against tougher opposition, they couldn't hit an ocean from a boat. The Nets never got past the second round of the playoffs, and after 3 seasons of disappointment, Kidd left the team, and the Nets transformed from a title contender to a lottery team. But if there's anybody who had worse results with superstar teammates, it's Vince Carter's cousin, Tracy McGrady. In 2000, McGrady left Toronto and his cousin Vince in order to play with the best small forward in the NBA at the time. It was Grant Hill, a 5-time All-Star in his basketball prime. T-Mac joined Hill in Orlando, which was kind of like Leonardo DiCaprio getting a lucky poker hand and winning a ticket for the Titanic, because just like Leonardo, McGrady's dreams of a bright future were soon replaced by the harsh reality that he boarded a sinking ship. Grant Hill had a nasty ankle injury during his last season in Detroit, and when he signed with Orlando, he just couldn't get healthy. Hill re-aggravated the injury. His ankle got infected, and at one point, the doctors even wanted to amputate his foot. In 4 seasons with the Magic, Grant only played 47 games and was never healthy in the playoffs. McGrady did become a superstar in Orlando with 2 scoring titles, but the team was mediocre without Hill, and after 4 years, T-Mac had no choice but to leave Orlando. Ironically, just when Tracy left, Grant Hill got healthy and became an all-star with the Magic. While McGrady was definitely one of the most talented players ever, he must be the least talented ever when it comes to picking his superstar teammates. Because after the fiasco with Hill in Orlando, McGrady teamed up with Yao Ming in Houston. Yao came to the NBA in 2002, and he immediately became famous worldwide. First, by blocking Shaq's shot 3 times in a row, and then by forcing Charles Barkley to kiss a donkey. And when T-Mac joined the Rockets, everything looked perfect, as both superstars were healthy and formed great chemistry on the court. But in 2005, after a disappointing playoff exit, Yao and T-Mac couldn't stay on the floor together. If one was healthy, the other was injured, and vice versa. They were supposed to be the best Chinese and African-American duo since Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, but Yao and T-Mac failed to deliver. History repeated itself for McGrady, and this time, he was too old and too injured to find another superstar, and both he and Yao were soon out of the NBA. In recent years, there was another guard-big man combo that was ruined by injuries. When they started out, they were the most fun and the most devastating pick-and-roll duo in the NBA, but when they fell apart, they weren't even speaking to each other anymore. In 2011, when Chris Paul joined the Clippers, it didn't take long for the team starting to get called Lob City. The Clippers had Blake Griffin, the most athletic big man in the NBA, and now they also had Paul, the best pick-and-roll passer in the NBA, who served lob dunks like McDonald's served French fries. But not only were they attractive, Blake and CP were also really good, and they were finally supposed to break the Clippers' curse. The Clippers never made the conference finals in their franchise history, and it seemed certain that the Lob City was going to do it. But they failed spectacularly. In 2014, they lost a 3-1 series lead in the second round of the playoffs against Houston. After that, either Griffin or Paul was injured in the playoffs, and they never reached the height all of those dunks had promised. Ultimately, Paul got traded to the Rockets to play with James Harden, which was a move that raised a lot of eyebrows. CP3 and James Harden were 2 ball-dominant guards with a history of beefing with their teammates, so how could it possibly work? But somehow, it did. In 2018, the Rockets had the #1 seed in the NBA and were the only team that could stop the almighty Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant, until one day, CP3's hamstring gave out, and he was forced to sit out the rest of Game 6 of the conference finals. In Game 7, the Rockets still had their chance to reach the finals, but they missed 27 three-pointers in a row, and that's not how you can win against Golden State. In the following year, Harden and Paul's chemistry eroded, and we could see their bickering on the floor and during timeouts. When the Rockets lost to the Warriors again, Houston's management decided to split the beefing duo, and CP3 was sent to OKC. But few players can bicker and talk trash to their own teammates better than Jimmy Butler. The year was 2017, and the Minnesota Timberwolves had a duo of first overall picks from 2 consecutive NBA drafts. They were supposed to be a good team. But despite the obvious talents of Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, who both won Rookie of the Year awards in 2015 and 2016, Minnesota sucked. So, when the young stars can't push you to the playoffs, it's smart to add a veteran, and Jimmy Butler seemed like the perfect fit. Trading for Jimmy immediately reaped the benefits, with Minnie winning 16 more games and making the playoffs for the first time since 2004. However, the young pups couldn't provide much help to Butler in the playoffs, and they immediately lost in the first round. When the next season started, Jimmy Butler wanted to see more hunger and more determination to improve from Cat and Wiggins. Instead, he saw 2 young kids who liked to have a good time and didn't care too much if they lost a game, and that pissed Jimmy off. Butler publicly asked for a trade, and he got into many arguments with Towns and Wiggins, famously beating all the starters in practice with a bunch of bench warmers from the second unit. Midway through his second season in Minneapolis, Butler got traded to Miami, but his feud with Towns was never fully over. In 2021, when Minnesota visited the Heat, Butler was caught on camera talking trash to Towns, calling him soft as baby feces, and saying that he punked him once and that he will punk him again. Just classic Jimmy.